Hashtag Galactic Empire never had war with humans before, so we warned them. Run hashtag Part 1. First Contact. The massive Empire scout ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Its golden hull reflected the distant sunlight, creating a spectacular show that Earth's telescopes captured instantly. The ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built, stretching nearly 5 kilometers from end to end. Inside the United Earth Defense Force headquarters beneath Mount Cheyenne, Admiral James Walker stared at the main screen. His weathered face showed no fear, only quiet determination. The base around him hummed with activity as personnel moved with practiced efficiency. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," reported Lieutenant Tom Fisher, his fingers flying over the communication panel. "The signal is clear. They want to talk." Walker nodded slowly. "Put them through." The screen flickered, and a tall figure appeared. The alien had gray skin that seemed to shimmer like metal, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. It wore what appeared to be a military uniform covered in strange symbols. "I am High Commander Dex of the Galactic Empire," the alien announced in perfect English. "We have monitored your civilization for the past 3 of your Earth months. You will surrender your world to the Empire immediately." The control room fell silent. Walker stood up straight, his blue eyes hard as steel. "High Commander, I am Admiral James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. We have no intention of surrendering." Dex's upper eyes blinked in what seemed like amusement. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. The Empire has conquered 10,000 worlds. Your primitive civilization cannot hope to resist." Walker smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "With all due respect, High Commander, we're not the ones who misunderstand. We're giving you a chance to leave peacefully." "You dare threaten the Empire?" Dex's voice carried a mixture of shock and outrage. "Not a threat," Walker replied calmly. "A warning. Run." The alien commander stared at the human for several long seconds. Then he laughed, a strange metallic sound that echoed through the control room. "Your species has barely reached your own moon. Your largest ships are tiny compared to ours. Your weapons are primitive. What makes you think you can stand against us?" Walker leaned forward slightly. "Because, High Commander, we've spent our entire history preparing for this moment. Every war we've fought, every weapon we've built, every strategy we've developed, it was all leading to this. We knew someday someone would come from the stars, and we made sure we'd be ready." "Admiral," one of Walker's officers called out, "we're detecting energy buildups in their ship. They're powering weapons." Walker didn't even turn around. "Activate Defense Protocol Alpha, and make sure all our transmissions to them are being recorded. I want them to remember they were warned." High Commander Dex raised what passed for an eyebrow. "Defense Protocol? Your bravado is amusing, but futile. The Empire will." The alien commander stopped mid-sentence as his sensors started beeping urgently. His 4 eyes widened as new information poured in. "Impossible," he whispered. All around Earth, hidden installations were powering up. Massive hangar doors opened in the sides of mountains, under oceans, and in the polar ice. Orbital platforms that had been cloaked and dormant for decades hummed to life, and in the asteroid belt, hundreds of stealth satellites activated their targeting systems. "Last chance," Walker said quietly. "Leave our solar system. Tell your empire that Earth is not to be touched. We don't want war, but by all that exists, we are ready for it." The alien commander's face showed real uncertainty for the first time. His sensors were showing military capabilities far beyond what their initial scans had detected. These humans had somehow hidden their true strength, and done it so well that even Imperial technology hadn't detected it. "This," Dex seemed to struggle for words, "this will be reported to the Empire Council. They will not be pleased." "That's your choice," Walker replied. "But remember, we warned you to run. Whatever happens next is on your heads, not ours." The transmission cut off. Minutes later, the Imperial scout ship turned and vanished back into hyperspace. In the control room, Walker finally allowed himself to sit down. He looked tired but satisfied. "Sir?" Lieutenant Fisher asked. "Do you think they'll listen?" Walker shook his head. No, Tom, they won't. Their empire is too old, too set in its ways. They'll come back with a fleet, thinking quantity will overcome quality. He smiled grimly. And then they'll learn why humans have never lost a war of survival. Send word to all commands, he ordered. Operation Thunderstorm is now active. May God have mercy on them, because we won't. Hashtag Galactic Empire never had war with humans before, so we warned them. Run hashtag Part 2, The Empire's Mistake. 3 weeks after the first contact, the Empire's invasion fleet arrived. 100 massive warships tore holes in space as they exited hyperspace, their golden hulls blocking out the stars. It was, by Imperial standards, a small force, suitable for subjugating a primitive world. High Commander Dex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Might. His 4 eyes studied the blue planet ahead. Begin the standard invasion pattern, he ordered. Disable their primitive satellites first. The fleet moved forward with absolute confidence. They had done this 1,000 times before. Their sensors detected the same orbital satellites they'd seen during their first visit, simple communication devices and crude weapon platforms. That's when Earth showed its first card. Sir, an Imperial officer shouted. New contacts. Thousands of them. What looked like metal rain emerged from Earth's atmosphere. Swarms of autonomous drones, each no bigger than a car, rose to meet the invasion fleet. They had been hidden in the oceans, underground bases, and cloud cities that Imperial scans had dismissed as weather formations. Impossible, Dex whispered. Their technology level. They're accelerating, another officer reported. Impact in 10 seconds. Raise shields, Dex ordered calmly. The Empire's energy shields were legendary. No primitive weapons could. The first wave of drones didn't try to break through the shields. Instead, they exploded just before impact, creating localized gravity distortions that twisted space itself. Imperial shields, designed to stop energy and physical impacts, were useless against the warped fabric of space-time. 20 Imperial ships broke apart in the first minute. Launch fighters. Dex commanded, his calm facade cracking. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Imperial fighters poured from the surviving ships, sleek, arrow-shaped craft that had dominated space battles for millennia. They met the second wave of Earth's defenses. From hidden bases on Mars and the Moon, electromagnetic pulse cannons fired. The pulses were precisely calibrated to the frequency of Imperial shield systems, passing through them like they weren't there. Imperial fighters began dropping from space, their systems completely fried. 40% of the fleet is gone, an officer reported, his metallic voice trembling. We're detecting more launches from Earth. This time, larger ships rose from Earth's oceans. They were ugly by Imperial standards, blocky, practical vessels bristling with weapons. Leading them was the UES Humanity's Sword, commanded by Captain Jack Stone. All Earth ships execute Battle Plan Delta. Stone's voice came clear over the command channel. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Today, we show the galaxy why you don't threaten Earth. The Earth fleet split into smaller groups, using maneuvers that made no sense to Imperial tactical computers. They seemed to be making mistakes, leaving obvious openings in their formation. They're disorganized, Dex said, some confidence returning. All remaining ships concentrate fire on their fleet. Ignore the drones for now. It was exactly what Earth's commanders had wanted. As Imperial ships moved to attack the seemingly vulnerable Earth fleet, hundreds of hidden antimatter mines activated. The mines had been placed weeks ago when Earth first detected Imperial scout ships in nearby systems. The explosions were visible from Earth's surface. Status report, Dex demanded, picking himself up from the floor of his bridge. We've lost 60 ships, came the shaking response. The humans, they're not using any tactics in our database. Our combat computers can't predict their movements. On the command deck of Humanity's Sword, Captain Stone watched the battle with grim satisfaction. Send the message, he ordered. Every surviving Imperial ship received the same transmission. We warned you to run. This was just our first line of defense. You have 10 minutes to surrender or retreat before we show you what humans can really do." High Commander Dex stared at the message, then at the tactical display showing his ruined fleet. In less than an hour, these primitives had destroyed almost 2/3 of his ships using weapons and tactics the Empire had never seen before. "All ships," he said quietly, "retreat to fallback point Alpha. Emergency hyperspace jump." As the surviving Imperial ships fled, leaving their damaged companions behind, Dex thought about the warning Earth had given them. They should have listened. They should have run. In the great archives of the Empire, located in a massive space station orbiting their capital world, Master Historian Robert watched the battle recordings for the 100th time. The Empire had captured him 6 months ago during a deep space exploration mission before they discovered Earth. Now they wanted answers. "Tell us again," demanded Council Member Axon, his metallic skin reflecting the holographic displays around them. "How did your people develop such weapons?" Robert smiled sadly. "You really want to know? Look at Earth's history. All of it." The historian pressed some buttons on the console in front of him. Images flashed across the screens. Ancient battles with swords and spears, medieval sieges, world wars with tanks and planes, modern conflicts with drones and cyber warfare. "In the last 3,000 years of recorded human history," Robert explained, "Earth has known only 268 years of peace. Not continuous years, total years. We spent over 90% of our history fighting each other." The council members shifted uncomfortably as they watched scenes from various human conflicts. "While your empire was enjoying millennia of peace," Robert continued, "we were learning. Every war taught us something new. Every conflict pushed our technology forward. We didn't want to fight, but we learned to be very, very good at it." He brought up images of the Cold War era. "Here's where we really started preparing for you, though we didn't know it then. Two superpowers pointing thousands of nuclear weapons at each other. We called it mutually assured destruction. The only thing that kept us from destroying ourselves was knowing the other side could do the same to us." "Barbaric," whispered Council Member Axon. "No," Robert corrected. "Effective. It kept the peace. More importantly, it taught us to think about war differently. We learned to hide our weapons, to build redundant systems, to make our military installations invisible to the most advanced scanning technology we could imagine. New images appeared. Underground cities, underwater bases, facilities built inside mountains. When we finally united as one planet, we didn't stop preparing. We just prepared for a different enemy. We knew someone would come from the stars eventually. We knew they probably wouldn't be friendly. So we kept building, kept innovating, kept hiding our true strength." The council chamber fell silent as Robert showed them more recent images. Massive shipyards hidden in asteroid belts. Weapon systems that could be concealed as civilian infrastructure. Training programs that turned every human space mission into a potential military exercise. "Your empire has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, Robert said quietly. "In that time, how many real wars have you fought? How many times have your tactics and technology been truly tested?" The silence in the chamber grew deeper. "That's what you don't understand," Robert continued. "Humans don't just learn from victory. We learn more from defeat. Every time we lose a battle, we adapt. We change. We improve. Your empire hasn't had to adapt in thousands of years." He turned to face the council directly. "You attacked us thinking we were primitive because we've only recently reached space, but we've spent our entire history preparing for war. First against ourselves, then against whatever we might find among the stars." "How?" Council Member Axon seemed to struggle with the question. "How did you develop gravity weapons? Our scientists said they should be impossible for your technology level." Robert laughed. "We didn't. We developed them specifically because your scientists said they were impossible. We looked at your technology, found its weaknesses, and built weapons to exploit them. While you were watching us, we were studying you." The historian's face grew serious. "Earth warned you to run because we didn't want this war. We've seen enough war to last 1,000 lifetimes. But you attacked anyway, and now you're learning what happens when you corner a species that has spent its entire existence learning how to fight. He turned back to the screens, where fresh battle reports were coming in. Your empire never had war with humans before. You should have kept it that way, because now we're going to show you everything we've learned, and I don't think you're going to like the lesson. The council chamber remained silent, watching as more reports of Imperial defeats appeared on the screens. Humanity's dark history had become the Empire's nightmare. Operation Thunderbolt began at exactly midnight Earth time. Admiral Walker stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching as hundreds of human ships emerged from their hidden positions throughout the solar system. "All ships report ready, sir," Captain Maria Torres reported from her tactical station. "Strike teams are in position." Walker nodded. "Send the code phrase." Throughout the fleet, commanders received the same message. Remember Pearl Harbor. The human fleet split into 5 battle groups, each targeting different Imperial systems. What the Empire didn't know was that humans had secretly mapped their territory during the past 6 months, using stealth ships disguised as space debris. Jump in 3, 2, 1. Space twisted as the human fleet activated their FTL drives. The Empire had assumed humans didn't have faster-than-light technology. They were wrong. Humans had developed it years ago but kept it hidden, waiting for the right moment. In the Imperial Core World Centauri X, the planetary defense commander stared in shock as 50 Earth ships appeared in his system. They weren't supposed to be here. They couldn't be here. His sensors must be wrong. The sensors weren't wrong. "This is Commander Bill Foster of Earth Strike Force Alpha. A transmission cut through all Imperial frequencies. We warned you to run. You didn't listen. Now we're bringing the fight to you." Human ships executed maneuvers that Imperial tactical computers classified as illogical and suicidal. They dove straight at planetary defense stations, then pulled away at the last second, leaving behind small packages that Imperial scanners dismissed as debris. Those packages were quantum bombs. Simultaneously, in 4 other Imperial systems, similar scenes played out. Human ships appeared where they couldn't possibly be, using tactics that made no sense to Imperial military doctrine. On the Imperial capital world, High Commander Dex received panicked reports from all 5 systems. "They're everywhere," one planetary governor screamed. "Their ships appear and disappear at will. Our defense grids can't track them." Another report came in. "They're using our own communication networks against us. Somehow they've hacked our quantum encrypted channels." Dex slammed his fist on his command console. "Impossible. Their technology level—" "Sir," his aide interrupted, "you need to see this." The main screen showed a human ship, badly damaged, about to be destroyed by Imperial forces. Instead of retreating, it accelerated straight toward the Imperial flagship. At the last second, it vanished, only to reappear behind the Imperial vessel, launching a devastating attack. "Micro-jumps," Dex whispered. "They've mastered controlled micro-jumps in combat. But that's supposed to be impossible." Admiral Walker's voice cut through their command channel. "You know what your Empire's problem is, High Commander? You decided what was impossible before you met us. Humans, we don't believe in impossible." Throughout Imperial space, carefully planned chaos unfolded. Human ships struck and vanished, leaving devastation in their wake. But they weren't targeting civilian areas or population centers. Every strike hit military installations, weapon platforms, and command centers. Back on the Vengeance, Walker watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Status report. "All objectives achieved, sir," Torres reported. "Imperial military capability in all 5 target systems reduced by approximately 60%. Civilian casualties, 0. Walker nodded. That was important. Earth wasn't fighting for conquest or destruction. They were fighting to be left alone. "Send the second message," he ordered. Throughout Imperial space, commanders received a new transmission. This was a demonstration. We can hit any system, at any time, in ways your defenses can't predict or stop. We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We just want you to leave us alone. Next time, we won't be so careful about avoiding casualties." In his command center, High Commander Dex watched his mighty Imperial fleet reduced to chaos by an enemy that, by all Imperial logic, shouldn't even be able to reach his systems. "Send word to all commands," he ordered quietly. "Fall back to defensive positions, and," he hesitated, "begin analyzing every second of combat footage. We need to learn how they fight." But deep down, he knew it might be too late. The Empire had started this war thinking humans were primitive. They were now learning just how wrong they had been. The Imperial Council Chamber had never seen such chaos in its 10,000 years of existence. Representatives from 50 different worlds were all shouting at once, their voices echoing off the golden walls. "The humans struck 3 more systems yesterday," shouted the delegate from Proxima Colony. "They appear from nowhere, destroy our military bases, and vanish," yelled another. High Commander Dex stood silent, watching the panic spread. The empire that had ruled unchallenged for millennia was crumbling from within, not from human attacks, but from fear of them. "Order," demanded Council Leader Vax, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We must maintain order." But order was becoming a rare commodity in Empire space. The latest reports showed that 30 Imperial worlds had already declared independence. They believed they'd be safer negotiating with Earth directly than remaining part of the Empire. "Show them the latest footage," Vax commanded. The central hologram activated, showing scenes from recent battles. Imperial ships, massive and powerful, moved in traditional combat formations that hadn't changed in thousands of years. Then human vessels would appear, using tactics that seemed to defy physics itself. "Our military doctrine," began one general, then stopped. "Is worthless," Dex finished for him. 10,000 years of peace made us forget how to really fight. The humans never forgot. They never stopped preparing. New images appeared. Imperial propaganda broadcasts being hijacked by human signals. Earth wasn't just fighting with ships and weapons. They were fighting with information, spreading doubt throughout the Empire. This broadcast reached 12 systems, reported Intelligence Director Max. "The humans showed our citizens how their tax money built massive warships that couldn't even defend against a primitive species. Public confidence in the military is at its lowest point in Imperial history." In the back of the chamber, Master Historian Robert watched with interest. The Empire had kept him around to help understand humans, but they still weren't really listening. "You're missing the point," he said quietly, but in the tense chamber, everyone heard him. "Explain," demanded Vax. "Humans aren't trying to destroy the Empire," Robert said. "Look at their attacks. Military targets only. Minimal civilian casualties. They're not pushing into our territory, not taking our worlds. They're doing something much worse. They're making the Empire look weak." He walked to the central display, pointing at different scenes. Every battle shows Imperial forces being outmaneuvered by inferior human technology. Every broadcast reminds your people that their invincible empire couldn't defeat a single planet. You're not losing systems because humans are conquering them. You're losing them because your own people are losing faith. The chamber fell silent as his words sank in. "And the worst part," Robert continued, "it's working even better than Earth planned. Admiral Walker predicted it would take 6 months for the first systems to declare independence. It took 6 weeks. Suddenly, all the screens in the chamber flashed red. New reports were coming in. "Multiple regions are reporting civil unrest," announced Director Max. "Imperial citizens are demanding answers. They want to know how we could have miscalculated so badly about Earth. Some are even calling for a complete restructuring of the Empire." High Commander Dex stepped forward. "We have to tell them the truth." "The truth?" Vax looked shocked. "That would destroy public confidence completely." "Public confidence is already destroyed," Dex replied. "Maybe honesty is our only way forward." He turned to the communication controls, and before anyone could stop him, opened a channel to all Imperial worlds. "Citizens of the Empire," he began, "we have failed you. Our arrogance led us to attack a species we didn't understand. We thought humans were primitive because they had only recently reached space. We were wrong. They had spent their entire history preparing for war, while we had forgotten what war really meant. Throughout Empire space, billions watched as their military leader admitted their mistakes. The Empire must change, Dex continued. We must learn. We must adapt. Or we must accept that we are no longer fit to rule the stars. In the council chamber, Robert smiled. The Empire was finally learning the hardest lesson humans had to teach. Sometimes the strongest civilizations are the ones that know how to admit their mistakes. The meeting room on the neutral space station Europa 7 was tense with anticipation. On one side sat Admiral Walker and his team from Earth. On the other, High Commander Dex and the remaining loyal Imperial Council members. Before we begin, Walker said, breaking the silence, I want you to see something. He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared between them. It showed Earth, but not as the Empire had seen it before. This was Earth from 1,000 years ago, torn apart by war, pollution, and conflict. This was us, Walker explained, fighting each other, destroying our own world. We nearly wiped ourselves out several times. The images changed, showing the gradual transformation of Earth into its current state, a world of clean cities, restored nature, and advanced technology. We didn't unite because we wanted to. Walker continued, we united because we had to, because we looked up at the stars and realized that if we couldn't stop fighting each other, we'd never be ready for what might come from out there. Dex leaned forward, his 4 eyes focused intently. You were preparing for us. Not you specifically, Walker smiled. Any advanced civilization that might find us. We knew first contact was inevitable. We also knew it might not be peaceful. But your weapons, one council member interrupted. Your tactics, they're beyond anything we've seen. Because we never stopped thinking like the underdogs, Walker explained. Every human child grows up learning about times when small forces defeated larger ones. David versus Goliath, the 300 Spartans, the American Revolution. We took those lessons to heart. He pressed another button, and new images appeared. Human ships standing down, weapons powered off. Right now, Walker said, Earth has the capability to strike 20 more Imperial systems. We could probably break the Empire completely within a month. The Imperial representatives shifted uncomfortably. But that's not what we want, Walker continued. Look at your worlds that declared independence. Notice something? We haven't attacked a single one of them. We don't want conquest. We just want to be left alone. To build more weapons, Dex asked quietly. To live in peace, Walker corrected. But yes, we'll keep our weapons. We'll keep preparing. It's what humans do. We hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Master Historian Robert, who had been quietly watching, stepped forward. Show them the last file, Admiral. The hologram changed one final time, showing scenes of human civilian life, families in parks, scientists in laboratories, artists creating beautiful works, children playing under peaceful skies. This is what we're protecting, Walker said softly. Not just our military capability, not just our independence, but our way of life, our right to live and grow without interference. High Commander Dex stood slowly. I finally understand. Your warning to run wasn't a threat. It was mercy. You knew what would happen if we forced you to fight. Walker nodded. War is horrible. We know that better than anyone. That's why we try to avoid it. But when we can't avoid it, you make sure you win it, Dex finished. We make sure we survive it, Walker corrected. There's a difference. The room fell silent again, but this time it was a thoughtful silence rather than a tense one. Finally, Dex spoke. The Empire would like to propose a treaty, not of surrender, but of mutual respect and recognition. We're listening, Walker replied. Earth and its solar system will be recognized as sovereign territory. No Imperial ships will enter without permission. In return, Dex hesitated, then continued, in return, we would like to learn from you. Not your weapons, but your adaptability, your innovation, your way of thinking. Walker looked at his team, saw their slight nods. We can work with that. But understand this, if anyone breaks this treaty, they'll have to deal with Earth, Dex finished, and now we know exactly what that means. As the two leaders stood to shake hands, a human custom the Empire had quickly learned to respect. Both sides realized something important. Sometimes the strongest peace comes after both sides prove they know how to fight. 5 years after the treaty signing, High Commander Dex stood before a new class of Imperial recruits. The training facility, redesigned with human assistance, looked very different from the grand golden halls of the past. It was practical, efficient, and ready for anything, just like its students. When I first encountered humans, Dex began, his voice carrying through the chamber, I thought they were primitive. Their ships were ugly. Their weapons seemed basic. Their tactics made no sense to our computers. The young recruits listened intently. Everyone in the Empire knew this story, but hearing it from Dex himself was different. I lost 60% of my fleet in less than an hour, he continued. But that wasn't our biggest defeat. Our biggest defeat was in our thinking. We had forgotten the most important military lesson of all: never underestimate your opponent. On the back wall, images played showing the famous battles, Imperial ships falling to human tactics that were now studied in every military academy across the galaxy. But today, I'm not here to talk about our defeats. I'm here to talk about what we learned, what humans taught us, not through war, but through peace. He gestured, and new images appeared. Joint human Imperial research stations, cultural exchange programs, defense exercises where human and Imperial ships trained together. Earth became known as the protected zone across the galaxy, but not because it needed protection, because everyone else needed protection from it. Yet in 5 years, do you know how many times humans have attacked another species? The recruits knew the answer. 0, sir. Exactly, Dex nodded. Because humans don't want war. They just want to make absolutely sure they can win one if it comes to them. And that's our first lesson. Peace through strength isn't about showing off power. It's about being so well prepared that nobody dares to test you. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Walker was giving a similar speech to human cadets. The venue was different. No grand chamber, just a practical briefing room. But the message was the same. We showed the Empire something they'd forgotten, he told his students. That true strength isn't in having the biggest ships or the most weapons. It's in being ready for anything, in being able to adapt, in never stopping learning. Back in the Imperial Academy, Dex activated a training simulation, one designed by human experts. Your challenge today isn't to win, he told his recruits. It's to survive, just like humans have done throughout their history. The simulation will change as you fight it. Your tactics won't work the same way twice. You'll have to think, adapt, improvise. The recruits looked nervous but determined. This new training was very different from the old Imperial methods of memorizing standard tactics and responses. And remember the most important lesson humans taught us, Dex said. If someone warns you to run, and they seem absolutely calm while saying it, run. The class laughed, but it was nervous laughter. They knew the story. They knew he was serious. In Earth orbit, Walker finished his own speech. We didn't want to fight the Empire. We warned them. Now we work together, and you know what? We're both stronger for it. Because sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to help your former enemies become your strongest allies. As both classes began their training, a small ship passed through the solar system's outer edge. Its captain, from a warrior race that had been watching events unfold, had been tasked with assessing whether Earth might be vulnerable to conquest. The captain observed the joint human Imperial patrol ships, noted the defense platforms that were visible, and wondered about the ones that surely weren't, and remembered the stories about what happened to the last empire that didn't take humans seriously. Without hesitation, the captain turned his ship around and engaged the drive to leave the system. His report would be simple. They warned the Empire to run. The Empire didn't listen. The Empire learned. We should learn from their mistake. In the vast darkness of space, Earth continued its orbit around the sun. On its surface and in the stations above, humans went about their lives, creating art, making music, advancing science, raising families, and always preparing for whatever might come next. Because that's what humans do. They hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and make sure anyone who might threaten them gets a fair warning.